Welcome back to the workshop, Handyman. We're going to continue a project we had on a previous video of we needed to make a sign. So just kind of a recap a little bit. We had ordered the letters from Rockler. These are stencils. We tried a little bit of stencil work and didn't really succeed real well. These things are really thin. They're plastic. They would work for a lot of things, and I did make them work for making stencils. So when we got all done, I went ahead and we made real stencils out of it. Here's one of them. Like I say, and you go back and see how I use those patterns to do it and how they interlock. I found out that probably if you watched the previous video, how we got it in there, we ended up using several different ends to try to get this to happen from the bushing sets here. I believe that thing said it needed a 5 1/64 with a 5/8 ID for the inner one, so that's the one we're using in our router. This set also would work. The only thing I didn't really like, the Bosch router that I have, you have to use this other kit for it, we found out, which is good. The only thing I don't like about this one was that when you set that down on your piece of work, you basically cannot see where you're routing. So I'm kind of staying away from that one, and I found instead on my router, I found a place that sold a clear base. So the clear base with the inlet sleeve looks something like that. And when you're routing, you can actually see about where you're at. So I kind of like this. And this is interchangeable. It goes with pretty much any router you get. It's got a lot of holes on the bottom of it, as you can see, to mount to just about any router you can come up with. I had no problem mounting it to my Bosch router. I also have the small sleeve that screws into it and holds into the bottom of the plate, so that will follow the pattern. What I do like about these with the bigger templates that I made, they're thicker, so when you do put it in there, you actually stay, I don't know if you can really catch that or not, the thing stays within the router or within the pattern, so you don't hit your sleeve here, does not hit the workpiece that you're trying to work on. When you have the plastic one, you put this on here, you can see that it's thin enough, let's see if I can focus on that, that the actual sleeve actually hits on your workpiece, so you don't have no way to ride it around it without just riding on this little thin sleeve, and then that thin sleeve keeps you up off your work surface so you don't get a good flat work. So that was kind of the problems we run into. I think we've got all those solved. We've kind of got it set up now to where this should work fine. I'm going to use a flat bit on this particular sign. So it'll be a 1/2 inch, I believe. And we'll set it up and see if we can make it work. The sign we're going to do, we've got the pieces, which that was the second part of the problem with the little plastic ones, is they recommend simply taking, looks like painter's tape, and taping them down. As soon as I hit that with the router, they loosened up, they moved around on the wood. That did not work. So what I've come up with the thicker ones like this, I've actually taken a couple of big bar clamps, and for a sign up to, well, this one here is almost 4 foot long, I've got 2 blanks put on the each end of it, so I can clamp that down, and then we just simply clamp them all together, centered them on my board that I'm going to have them on. You know, that's going to be adaptive to whichever type of sign you're doing. But yeah, this sign's going for a hardware store, so we're going to put hardware on here. I've got just a regular treated decking board. It's 10 foot long, so I split that in half, and then we've put the hardware part on here. And it's ready to go ahead and start running a router around it and see if we can get that routed in. So we'll set it up and go from there. Okay, so that was one pass through there. You see it piles up a lot of dust and all in the corners here, so it doesn't get real good up into those. So I'm going to vacuum all those out, and then go ahead and just keep lowering the router down and get it to the point where I am happy with the depth, and then we'll go from there. But I'll just keep dropping her down in and probably get it down to, I don't know, 1/4 inch depth, something like that, and give it a little bit of highlight, and that way when we finish it, it'll have a little bit of standoff to it. But clamping it down like this seems to work really well, so we'll go ahead and finish this one on out. Okay, after we set it all up, we've got it all routered in. We went about 3/8 of an inch into it. And then we also have the other side, which we have to flip over, of course, because this is going to be a two-sided sign. So let's see if we can go the same thing on this side. And we're going to go ahead, of course, that'll all get painted in and highlighted, but we'll go ahead and set up for the next part of it. Okay, it's been a couple of days now since I was working on this. Kind of got draw off on a couple of other projects. But what we're going to do today is go ahead and see if we can make a little bit more progress on it. We had all this routed out, ready to go. I used my big Bosch router to get the letters and all in there, but I have used my other one, this little router here, little Weetool router. It was given to me to check out by the company, and man, I've really kind of found it a good little router if you ever want a nice little compact router. This thing comes with the plunge base. It comes with all kinds of guides and stuff on it. It's just a handy little baby to have around, so kind of highly recommend that. Powerful little thing for what I've used so far. But what I'm going to do here is on this board, I'm going to go ahead and I've marked out kind of where I'm going to use this. I want to just run a big arrow down through here, I guess, and try to make it look somewhat like an arrow. I think I need to go that long. Could go a little bit shorter even. I don't know. We'll kind of play with it. I think I like the long just because it'll catch it better. So what we did is I've kind of marked off the halfway point. We've set up my little guide on here. So we'll come into it, guide it. I've gone dado it out, or to route it out the same depth as that. When we get down here, we're going to pretty much almost probably have to freestyle that arrow into it. So we'll see how that works out too. So we'll go ahead and set this up and route it in. I set my little edge guide up, so we're just going to run the router in about the halfway point, run it the length of this, and we should be in pretty good shape to run that a little bit at a time. We're just going to take a touch off of it, and we'll keep dropping it down until it gets about the same depth as that. We should have us a pretty good arrow. So let's go ahead and see how this works. First pass is good. We'll go ahead and loosen this up and just drop it down just a little bit more. And we'll keep doing that until we get it to the full depth that we need. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do on this one, just to do it, I took the guide off of there. I've lowered this router down again just a little bit. And I think I'm just going to make little 45s on here. We're going to kind of almost freehand it. Set my thing on there, line it up with the base of that, and just kind of follow it out. Let's see what happens with it. I think it'll work. We'll kind of make sure we get those all even, but I think we can do that. I might do a couple of arrows just to make sure that we get that logged out. So we're going to go ahead and mark those on in and see if we can show you what it looks like when we're done. Okay, I got them all routed out good, and now we're going to go ahead and just, we don't have to worry about a whole lot. I'm just painting inside all the lines. I got me a good exterior paint, and like I say, we slop it on in there because the top of this I'm going to run through the sander when I get all done. And that'll take away any of the white paint that's left over on the top, but we do want to seal that up good in there. So we'll just swap her on in there, sand it down. That'll make nice crisp lines. Probably have to do a couple of coats on this because I do want it to last. These are exterior boards, so they shouldn't really rot away. But I think it'll do all right. Just make sure all the surfaces are covered good. A little bit of a pain, but I think we can make it work. So we're going to go ahead and just paint her on out, and we'll go from there. We'll let you see what it looks like when we get that done. that the first coat of paint is on. We'll let this dry for overnight and then her for a little while, see how she does, and then we'll put on a second coat. Progress is being made. Okay, well, the paint is dry. We are working on getting the stand ready to go for it. So we take in, I'm just going to put this as a couple of 4x4s, took them apart, didn't really get a whole lot on that, cut them in half, make the sign about 4 foot tall on this particular one. And then I've just simply gone over to the table saw and I put my dado head in there and we dadoed out a groove wide enough to accept the boards. And those 3 boards are about 16 inches long. So I'll have to chisel out the bottom down here where it's, I don't know if you can see that or not, where the dado is a little bit rounded over. We'll square that out with a chisel. But those boards should slide right down into the groove that I've made. And then we'll be able to slide our board in between it. So the next thing we're going to do, because this is not going to get buried, the plan is to build us a base, a T-base on the bottom of it. So we'll figure out this. On the bottom, we'll put 4x4 crossed here, a couple of braces to it, and that'll hold it up in the air. And we'll probably end up drilling a couple of holes in it and run some rebar or something in there to stake it down so it don't go anywhere. But that's kind of the plan of it. We'll go ahead and see if we can start building some of the base while we still wait on the paint to dry. Okay, now for the bottom, I think what we're going to do is I've gone ahead and grabbed me another 4x4 and we've set it up. I found one 4 foot long, so we're going to go ahead and cut this and trim it up a little bit and cut it in half. I think 2 foot per leg with it staked down should hold it in place plenty good enough. So we'll go ahead and see if we can do that. This blade is not designed to go, this is a very close blade. It's good for a little trim work, but not much good for the 4x4. So we about almost burned through these, but it's the quickest way to get it cut for here. Okay, so we got our two foot stands. We'll take this over here, and the next thing we're going to do is on these bases, see if I can show you what I'm thinking of doing. So we're going to take this one here. It's going to have to sit this direction. So I'm going to set this one into it like that. I'm going to mark that at halfway, and we'll go ahead and dado into that so it sits down into the leg the whole way. And that'll kind of make it a little bit more sturdy. And then when we get done with that, then we'll bring us a couple of small braces here just to keep it from tipping that direction. So I think that's all we'll need. We'll go ahead and mark that out in the center and take it over and see if we can hit it with a dado. Okay, we've got the dado head set up. I'm about 1.25 inches tall. And we're just going to go ahead and start this up and dado it on out. That's got that one dadoed out. We'll make sure it fits the 4x4 it was intended, and we'll go ahead and do the other one. Okay, the next thing we need to know is about how deep. Make sure, I think we checked that already, about 16 inches. We're a little over 16 here. I think I'm going to square some of these up a little bit, have them come together. So I think I still want to maintain about 16 inches, maybe a little more, 16 1/4 maybe. Distance down. So what we're going to do is go back over here to our stands, and as you can see here, we've got the one dadoed out here all the way in. It'll fit in there tight. That'll keep that snug from tipping over too much. So I think that'll be fine. Now what I would like to do is have a 2x4, and that 2x4 I want it to sit, and I think we're going to dado that in right at that 16 or 16 1/4 mark, and put that 2x4 right in this area here. So we'll take this back over and carve that out, and that'll kind of keep those separated and not rely just on the boards up on top. I'd like to leave those as loose as possible. And then when we get all done, I think I want to take, after that, we'll go ahead up here on the very top and we'll cap both of these off for just a little bit of a rain guard to keep the water from off of it, make it look a little bit like a roof on top maybe. So we'll go ahead and get that calculated. I don't know the exact length yet between the two of those, so we'll have to calculate that yet, but we'll go ahead and dado these things out to handle that 2x2, same way as we did the 4x4 down on the bottom. Okay, I've got that all dadoed out for the 2x4, and then we've got this little bit here. I'd have known where exactly I wanted that before, that'd have been all right. I think we're just gonna take the router and route that little bit extra out of there real quick. I think it'll work just fine. Be easier than me chiseling it anyways. So we'll set this up and see what it does. So I need to go ahead and get both of those set up here, I think. And then we've got to set this to the full depth. Let's take that off the bottom just slightly. Okay. Okay, I've got that real close. We'll go ahead and just, in the very ends in there, we'll clean those up with the chisel, and that should have us looking pretty good. Okay, we're gonna do a quick calculation on this one here. We wanna make sure that everything is lined up when we go to cut this back. So what we'll do, let's see if we can catch this a little bit, how I plan on lining all this up. What we do is, I've already kind of laid this out. I've measured the furthest point to the furthest point on this, and then from there I cut that dimension in half. So like this one is 36 3/4, and I cut that in half, and that came out to 18 1/8. So I've put a pencil mark here which indicates my half, and I did that on all three of these. And then when I get done with that, I take my square and I can line that back up and line up all my halfway points. Make sure each of my halves are in line, and that'll give me the layout of the sign, I believe. So now I know that I've got at least an inch or so on each side of the longest point, so I'm going to take from the longest one, and I figure an inch there, maybe an inch and a half from the longest point. I think that's where I'm going to make that one. I think that, well, let's just go 2. Make it a nice even 2, and we'll go 2 inches on this side. I don't know as though it really makes a lot of difference on that, but that'll make the overall length of the letters anyways, 41 inches long on this particular sign. So we'll go ahead and put the square on there, and we'll cut this one off, or all three of these at that length. There, and down at the other end here. That should have us, I think, a decent sign and look approximately like what we want it. So we'll go ahead and throw that into the saw. We've got it lined up on both ends. We'll cut them off at that point. Okay, we went ahead and did kind of a dry fit. We just clamped them together. Now I'll go ahead and calculate out the move I need. I need a 2x4 crossed here, like I say. So we're going to make this one here, looks like about 42 and a big 3/4. So that'll fit in there just nicely, I believe. So we'll be able to slide that in. We'll leave just a little bit of space on that for so those boards can slide down in fairly easily. So 42 1/4. Okay, the next thing I want to do, set this thing up, is we're going to go ahead and just sand the surfaces of these a little bit on my drum sander. We'll set that up to get them flattened and squared up a little bit. This will take all the bow out of them so it'll fit down into the holder a little better. We don't necessarily need to get rid of all the white. We just want it to be smooth and squared up. We'll do the other side because everything's going to get painted another color to make these stick out better anyway. And it ends up looking about like that. So we'll go ahead and set it in the sign. Starting to get the idea. I think we'll be all right. We got just a little bit extra lip up here, so I'm going to go ahead and square some of these off and make up the difference of that. I'll probably just run them through my joiner to square all these and make them flat and straight, and then we'll build us a little roof over it. Like I say, I think we'll be all right if we just take this and put another board on top of it like that, kind of square it off. I think it'll make it look like a pretty decent sign. So we'll go ahead and square those up, make them all fit down in there just right. Okay, I think that looks good. They're all evened up. We're going to go ahead and start working on the roof. It's got a little warp to it, but we'll screw that down so it won't matter. I think I want to try to make that overhang it by, I don't know, what, about 4 inches or so? So let's add 8 inches to this dimension. And that should give us about 4 inches on either side. So at 47, we'll add 8 inches to that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 55. So we'll go ahead and cut that board to 55 inches and see if we can make it look like a roof. And with this, I'm going to go ahead and just square her 45 off the edges a little bit, kind of kill those corners. And yes, I did set up a stop down at this end, so I had them all the same 45 coming off of them. So that just kind of kills that corner just a little bit. We'll go ahead and set that over here on it. I think probably the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and run that through the sander one time also. And then we'll run a router around it and round those edges off just a little bit. And then see how that looks. Okay, I've set my router up with a 1/2 inch round over bit. We'll just run around it real quick, see how that works. All right, it gives it a good finished look. And now for some of the last pieces, we're gonna go ahead. I just cut a 45 on this one. I wanna have a little brace here on both sides of this. So we'll set this up, make sure it's tight on that, just kind of get us close. This isn't exact science. And then we mark that. We'll go ahead and cut that. We should be able to make 4 of those and screw those in, and that should have us the framework done. Okay, we've got those put in place. Now everything is just kind of sitting in place, but I think that's pretty much the whole idea of it. I think it's gonna look pretty good. We'll go ahead and send this to the person that we're actually building it for. Make sure he's happy with it. About the only thing else I'm gonna do when we get all done, like I say, is going to be drill a couple of holes right here on both sides, and we'll take a piece of rebar and run it right down into the ground. I think that'll probably hold it in place plenty good enough. So now we're going to skip all the boring details of the rest of the sanding. We'll be painting all the framework and everything. It's going to be in white, I believe, and then the background will be the green color that he uses on the hardware sign. So we'll go ahead and start prepping all that, get it screwed together, and get it ready to go. Okay, we've got it sanded and puttied and all the above, and we've got the first coat of paint on everything. I think it's starting to shine up a little bit. Stand has got its first coat of paint. Of course, the top will go on once I put the rest of these in. Don't want to have to paint around the white if I don't have to, so do those up, just slide them in and then put the cap on. So we'll go ahead and start with our second coat of paint. Okay, it's been painted and put back together. I think it's looking pretty good. Had a little bit of aggravation on the project as we saw in part one. If you didn't see that part of the project, the building of the stencils and all, go on back and see that. I definitely did not like some of that part of it because it didn't work quite the way I thought it should. But anyways, the sign's done. We'll go ahead and take this to the customer hopefully tomorrow and get it put out. And that should complete this project. We'll go on to the next one. Thanks again for watching the video, and let me know any comments. I'll be happy to answer back any questions. Comments, always welcome. So we do appreciate that. Hit that like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll catch you on the next video. Thanks again.